Can you see our screen, Woodward? And they left. Okay.
All right. Everybody can hear me, I think. I'll go ahead and unless they come on. Yeah, and I forgot I was being recorded, so I'll use this. Okay. So it is two things, but you don't have to space it if you don't want to. Purdue OWL, you'll see the sample paper general format. You can just go ahead and click on the first thing you see. So there's an APA guide and an MLA guide. Those are the ones that we're going to be focusing on today. How many of you guys are in comp right now? Comp classes? Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with the MLA guide because comp classes here use strictly MLA. So here is what it looks like. Let me see if I can full screen this. So yeah, here is what this will look like. Minimize it. Great. All right, here's what this will look like. So this default, get that out of there. Oh my goodness. Okay, so there's a bunch of ads. Try to ignore those. So we have it looks kind of confusing when you first start out because there's all these little tabs and you might not know where to start. That's why it says start here. So you can start with a general formatting or an MLA formatting and style guide. Most people, if you're just in a comp class, you're just going to need the general formatting. So you have paper format, it tells you general guidelines, formatting the first page of your paper, and then it has things not to do, things to do. The great part about it is that it has a visual aid. So here, everything that it says, like it says, do not make a title for your paper unless specifically requested or the paper is assigned as a group project. And here, in this case, there is a title. Most of the time, if you're is your guys' professor Vaughn, you're gonna want a title for your paper. So there's rarely a time when you don't want a title, but it tells you what not to do in case you don't need one. In the upper left-hand corner of the first page, list your name, your instructor's name, the course, and the date. This is going to be different from APA, which it requires a title page, which we'll see when we go there. But if you don't know what that looks like, here is what that looks like here. Um, but yeah, this is just a good general format. If you have any particular questions, this is a great first place to start. But if you're wondering what all of these little tabs are, these are these get into the not the weeds, but these get more into specifics. So here you have MLA format and style guide. We've already looked at that. MLA in-text citations, the basics. So in-text citations are like have you ever read a sentence and then at the end there's a weird name in parentheses of the paper? Yes, that's an in-text citation. Yes. Okay, so this gives you like general guidelines on how to do that. Um, and we'll come back after this presentation, and I'll open it up to questions. So if you see anything that I'll give you like a quick second to glance at this, and then if you really want to come back and look at it afterwards, write it down, and we can look at it later. So I'll give you like 5-10 seconds to peruse this. The works cited page is probably, that would be my number one go-to, the sample paper. So we'll open up the sample paper real quick. And I do have an example without all these little boxes, but I wanted to show you what this looks like because these boxes explain everything and why everything is there. So you see here your name, the professor's name, the course number, the date. This is an example of APA format. You have the title, and then it goes through and tells you why things are indented the way they are, why things have an in-text citation. It talks about tabs. Now, I will say in most comp papers, you're not going to need tabs or subheadings, is what they're called. Not really tabs. Yeah, subheadings. But in some papers you will. For example, when you get into your higher course, your upper level courses, you're going to want subtitles, but that will be depending on what your professor says and what your professor requires. In most comp classes, in most comp papers, you're not going to need that. So if we want to get to the APA writing lab, we can click here, online writing lab, research and citation, and then we go down to APA 7th edition. So APA, we can go to the APA style workshop. What mostly I think what we're going to want to do is go to the APA formatting and style guide. We can start here for the general format. So if you have questions on how APA should be generally formatted or you don't have any like specific questions, this is a great place to start. So you have general APA guidelines, what font you should use. Everything is usually 12-point font Times New Roman. Here it says you can use 11-point Calibri, 11-point Arial. Don't do that. When you are in college classes, all professors expect 12-point Times New Roman. If you do any weird stuff, you're either going to have to beg them for mercy or just be like, hey, is this okay? And they'll probably say no. But, to each their own. But major paper sections. So APA oftentimes has sections. So you'll have a title page, an abstract, main body, and reference. What you'll notice is if you go look at any of the templates, it will differentiate between a professional paper and a student paper. So for example, if you're looking at a template on Google Docs, it'll say an abstract for a professional paper. Let me go to Google Docs and I will show you how to get to those templates. This is like a little side quest. Ooh. Okay. So you just scroll down. You can also find these on Word if you prefer Word. So here it'll say report APA 6th edition, APA 7th edition. You'll always want the 7th edition. You'll always want the newest edition. So right, like here it says title for your paper for professional papers. You do not, that is called a running head. That is not needed. Hello, we have a sign-in sheet if you need to sign in. Welcome to this workshop. My name is Ash Kreitz. We are going over APA format now, and I'm showing currently how to do what a template looks like in Google Docs. So here, right, it says author's note. It's kind of the same. It's not really something you have to worry about right now unless you're going into writing professional papers, but you can just go ahead and delete that. And then for an abstract, you really won't need to do that unless you're in Foundations of English Studies. Or I've never had to write an abstract except for that one class. But if you do, this is what it will look like. So, and then you have the main body and references. So if you want to know what an APA paper looks like, you can go over here to the sample page, sample paper, APA sample paper. Then it will load. And see, there's a student paper and there's a professional paper. We often focus on the student papers because they typically encompass everything that a student will need. So this is what a title page looks like. You have your name, your department, or the department that the class is in. Then you have the course name and course number. You have the professor, and then you have the date the paper is written or the date the paper's due. And then this is kind of what it looks like when you're writing it. I do have here, I have some student examples. So this is, yes, this is APA format. So this is an example of a paper that I've written. If you see any errors, feel free to shout them out. But here is an example of what an APA student paper will look like. See, there's no running head, but there is a page number. The difference that you'll notice with page numbers between MLA and APA is that MLA has the student's last name with the page number, but APA does not. And here is an example. This paper did require subtitles. A lot of papers don't. It's really, that once again is truly up to the professor. And so you really have to scrutinize the assignment sheets. So here we have the introduction, and then we have subtitles that go into what the different sections of the paper are. Like co-teaching and special education. So, everything after this is going to be about co-teaching and special education, developing collaborative relationships. And then we have like 2 paragraphs on this, and then a conclusion. But notice we did not have a heading for the introduction. That was because the title itself acted as the heading for that. So let's look at the MLA example. Okay, that's the template. Let's look at the MLA example. So this is what a student example of an MLA paper will look like. For example, one thing you'll notice is that it does not have page numbers. That is because this professor did not specifically require page numbers, or did not dock me at least for not having page numbers. But typically in MLA format, you are going to want page numbers. How to add page numbers to something that does not have page numbers, in Google Docs at least, you will go to Insert. I think it's Insert as well for it on Word. How many of you use Word? Do you guys use Google Docs?
I use Word, but I use the MLA template and just kind of fill in my stuff.
Awesome. That is also a great way to go. It's good to see you. I did not know that you guys were here. So I'm loving to hear from you guys. Okay. So if we scroll down, you see page numbers, and we go here. And we want to make sure that we change it to Times 12-point font, which can be tricky. So I'll type in Kreitz, which is my last name, and then change the font to Times New Roman, 12-point font. There you go. And then hopefully it will just run down the rest of the paper. So here we have my name, the class, the professor's name, and the date the paper was written. We have the title, and here we don't have any subtitles. So in MLA, subtitles really aren't used. At least I've never really seen them be used in this format. I'm sure anything's possible, but I don't think that it's standard for this format. But this is kind of what it looks like. You see that the paragraphs are stacked on one another. And then you scroll, there's not even a subtitle for the conclusion. It just ends. And then you see the works cited page, which is different than APA calls it a reference page. It's the same thing. It's just a different title. And then real difference is the way that the citations are formatted. So, and then you'll see here, there's tabs for specific things, mostly referring to the reference list. So that's exactly what I was talking about with the works cited page in MLA. We call this references, and then they're formatted differently. And there's a lot of things to remember with the reference list, which is why you'll see them a lot here. So I would like to open the floor to questions. Is there anything you guys would like me to specifically go over? Ms. Rose, yes. Yes, I will. That's a great question. So we'll start with, I think the best way to start is going to in-text citations, the basics. Let it load. Let it load. Okay. So in-text citations, the basics. We start with this paragraph right here. Follow the author date method of in-text citation. So that's different than MLA because MLA uses the author page number typically. So here we have in-text citation, capitalization, quotes, italics, and underlining. So that basically means different titles for different work have different rules for whether they're in quotation marks, they're underlined, or they're italics. So typically, if you're writing something or you're typing it, you're not really going to be underlining anything. It's either going to be in italics or it's going to be in quotation marks. Here we have what to do if you have a short quotation. So if you want to quote something that's not very long, but it's specific, you'll put the author's last name, the date that the work was published, and then at the end, you'll put P dot the page number. So P is just an indication of the page number that you got it from. So here's another example of that. So the difference between this is that this citation here, in-text citation, is referencing the author before the quote. So that means that the author does not need to be in the parentheses. Here we see that again, where the author is not in the parentheses. Here, because the author is not referenced before the quote, the author needs to be included in the parentheses, and this is what that looks like. Here we have a long quotation. So typically because like comp papers are really short, for example, we tend to steer away from block quotations because they take up a lot of space. And if you're writing a 5-page paper, but most of your paper is a block quote, you're not going to get away with that. Trust me, I've tried. The doctors with PhDs, they catch on really quick. But that's what a block quotation looks like. And notice that the author was referenced before, so he's not in the parenthetical citation, which is what it's called when, so like P dot 19 or P dot 199, whatever's in that parentheses is called a parenthetical citation. Quotations from sources without pages. So this is a great part about Purdue OWL, is that everything is kind of spelled out for you. So if you get something off of a website that doesn't have a page number, you can come here, quotations from sources without pages, and it'll tell you exactly how to phrase or how to cite that. So here we have Jones referenced, and then there's no pages, so they cited the paragraph. They're referencing a table, so they just say table 3, Jones. Summary or paraphrasing, this gets really complicated as you talk about APA format because a lot of people don't understand. There's some difficulty between the difference between summary and paraphrasing. People often get confused, but when it comes to citation, at least, there's not really a need to put anything in quotations because it's not a direct quote. It's just a summary or a paraphrase. So you see here, nothing is in direct quotations because it's not a direct quote. So if you've noticed, it's been saying Jones this, Jones this. Where is, if you just say Jones, where is your professor going to see where that is? So they come here to the reference list to see your authors. This, okay. How are we doing so far? I just info dumped about integrity.
Good.
Oh, okay. I see people writing. I'll slow down a little bit. Hi, how are you? Are you in comp? Cool. I heard he promised extra credit. What are you guys reading now? Oh, I read that in Shakespeare. Yeah. It's a good book. Good movie if you've ever seen 10 Things I Hate About You. Yep, Kiss Me Kate. Great movie. So if you want to cheat, watch Kiss Me Kate. Okay, so basic rule. Dr. Vaughn would hate that. Don't do that. Okay. So this is the reference list. This is basic rules for most sources. So a long list for basic rules, but the good part about this is that so it has for most sources. So like websites, general books. Here we have basic rules for articles and academic journals. So if you use the online databases, if you go to our library's website and you look at the databases, you will find mostly academic journals. So that is where you would come here. So like JSTOR or EBSCO, this would be for this. So typically, you'll start with a hanging indention. Hanging indentions are easier in Word because you can highlight and there's a button that you can press that will include a hanging indention. Hanging indentions are not so easy in Google Docs because there's no magical button that you can press. Many professors will tell you not to use tabs. They don't really like that. So instead, I will not say that tabs are easier. I will show you how to not use a tab by jumbling up this beautiful citation here, mixing it up. Oh no, how am I ever going to fix this? Does anyone know the exact measurements that you're supposed to do for a hanging indention? Half inch? Well, if we don't know, we can always look. So all lines after the first line of each entry in your reference list should be indented 1/2 inch from the left margin. This is called a hanging indention. So if we come back here and we see this is the first line, so we have to figure out how to break this. So we move this here, right? Does that look about right to everybody? All right. Oh no. That was a mistake. You're going to see this a lot. I go through this problem every single time I have to do this manually. So what I'll do is I'll break it by entering it, and then I'll move the tab 1/2 inch. And then what I'll do is I'll do this, and there you go. I see a face. Is there another way to do it? Would you like to show? Would you like to demonstrate it? Yeah, sure. The always assuming that I'm an expert at everything is not, it's just not the right way to live my life. So I'm just gonna let somebody else show it.
Yeah.
Trust Ava.
Yeah, the way that I do it works most of the time, um, but I won't guarantee anything. So if we were to clear the formatting on this, which is what that button does, is this MLA or APA? Okay, so this is MLA, APA. It's the same either way with font. Okay. Where is, okay, that. So if you go to format and indent, it's kind of hard to get to where it does it. But if you go to indentation options and you say special and you say hanging, I think this is where you put 1/2 inch. That does it? No, do I need to select? Haven't done this in a while. Indentation options, hanging, inches. Is this where it goes? Bear with me. It's somewhere. This is where I said it's not easy every time. This has got to be it. That says inches. Hanging. What's it telling me? That? Okay, see, it's not red anymore.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay. I wanted to show you guys that it's an option, and I'm not very familiar with it, so I figured why not let someone who does it all the time show you. So that's just another option. I'm sure if you guys are probably smarter than all of us, so you guys can probably figure it out if you wanted to on your own time. So that's if you're looking for a standard list of what do I do for APA, this is where you would go. It tells you word for word exactly how everything should be formatted. And then if you're looking for academic journals, this is where you would go. And then here it shows you reference list for authors. So this is how to cite your authors. Here it says, I clicked on it, so I have to let it load. My bad. Yes, yes. Or like any source that has an author. So, like a web page that wasn't. So sometimes web articles are authored by, or they don't have an author, so you can assume that they're just an amalgamation of research from all of the people that were in that play a role in the organization. Or it's like if you go to Edutopia, which is a common source used in the education department, typically those have articles written by a certain author. So some websites that you use won't have a specific author, but some will. So you'll find them for books and you'll find them for some web articles. So here you have a single author. You have Ahmed S. So it's just the last name, comma, the first initial of the first name or the initial. 2 authors. You list by their last names and initials, separate the author's names with a comma, use the ampersand instead of and. So here's what that looks like. The periods are just the initials. And then the and sign. 3 or 20 authors. Nguyen T dot. And then you go on and on. Eventually, so here, that is when you would list all the author's names and initials using commas to separate, while the last author uses the and sign. So more than 20 authors, this says list by names and initials, commas separate authors' names. After the first 19 authors' names, use an ellipsis in place of the remaining authors' names. So when you get to 19, that's when you can use the ellipsis. It's kind of cruel that way. It makes you write out 19 people's names. It's wild. So group authors. So that's when you'll have like an organization if you're online. So Merriam-Webster dictionary, you would just use Merriam-Webster. and then the date. Or, for example, if you're using the Oxford English Dictionary, which we do have access to in the library at our library's database, which Dr. Vaughn, big tip, he loves the Oxford English Dictionary if you ever need to define something. That is where I would recommend going. So an unknown author, when the work does not have an author, move to the title or move the title of the work at the beginning of the reference and follow the date of publication. So that's what this will look like. So that's the title. And then you have the 11th edition and the date. 2 or more works. The great part about this resource is that it gets really specific. So if you don't find what you're looking for, scroll down. Big tip, scroll down. So if we go up and we go to the MLA section, so we'll go to Online Writing Lab, MLA style. We can go to the formatting guide and scroll down. We can go to the works cited page and look at their basic format. And then again, we see basic rules. And then we have additional basic rules, capitalization and punctuation, listing authors' names, more than one work by an author, work with no known author, work by an author using a pseudonym or stage name. It all gets very specific. When in doubt, if you're curious as to something should look, I would recommend the sample paper. Again, the sample works cited page. And then if you look at the tabs, you can see that there's specifics for books. So like with the Norton anthology, if you're using that to read Taming of the Shrew, you would use this. You would use books. And it would be the author of the anthology, it wouldn't be Shakespeare if you're using an anthology to read Taming of the Shrew. So here you have electronic periodicals. It'll take you through that. Newspaper, review, or if you go here, electronic sources. This is what most people use if they're not in an English class. They'll typically be using either their textbook or an online source. So this is going to be used a lot. Other common sources. So this is just like MISC. Are there any questions? Are there anything you guys want me to specifically go over? Anything that you noted that maybe I didn't discuss that you would like me to discuss? Ava.
And that was like the citation for it, but in parenthetical citations, how do you put different works by the same author in text? How would it apply?
Format. Yes. So in text author style, in text citation for print sources, known author. Citing a work by multiple authors. That's the question you're asking? Multiple works by the same author. So that would be here. Like I said, if you ever have a question, if you're ever curious about something, just keep scrolling. You'll find it. So here that would look like, if you cite more than one work by an author, include a shortened title for the particular work from which you are quoting to distinguish it from others. Put short titles of books in italics and short titles of articles in quotation marks. So this is an example. 2 articles and 2 books, they're going to look different. If the author's name is not mentioned in the sentence, format your citation with the author's name followed by a comma, followed by a shortened title of the work, and when appropriate, the page numbers. So here, this is what that looks like. Any other questions? Yes, Ava. Encyclopedia entry. That's a good question. So if is it an electronic encyclopedia, or is it that's real? So like Encyclopedia Britannica. Okay. I think that would just be like the same as an electronic source. All right. So we have about 10, or not 10, but we have about like 5 minutes left. So if you have any questions, you can email Mrs. Rose. If you have any questions for me, you can email Mrs. Rose. So if it's an electronic encyclopedia, you can use the electronic sources, or you might find it in other common sources. You can keep scrolling, maybe find it. Who knows? Any other questions? All right, I'm going to hand over the microphone to Mrs. Rose.
Okay, if you guys that attended, just please make sure you do the feedback survey for me. That's that second QR code. And then at the bottom, the third QR code, that is a APA. I'm sorry, it's not MLA. It's APA exact walkthrough through these tabs here on the side. So if you have to write an APA paper, you can open that up and it tells you exactly which one to look at for which source you're trying to cite. So if you guys would do that, Woodward, I think it's Woodward over there. If you guys don't have those, I will be sending those QR codes out tomorrow morning with this video. So you can also fill out the feedback survey later. So if you do have any questions, you can email me at amrose@nwosu.edu. I did send you an email this morning, so you can do that too. And thank you guys for all coming.
Thank you. Have a good day.